Hello! What's going on, guys? So, today, I'm going to be going into Birmingham City Centre to take some pictures with this bad boy. This is a Perspex juggling ball. I bought it from Amazon for like £2 or £3, so it was super cheap. But because I'm a goddamn fool, I didn't click next day delivery, hence why it's taken 2 or 3 weeks. I'm a cheapskate, what can I say? Wait, is this recorded? Hello, yeah. Fucking hell, I can't do anything right today, Lord of mercy. I'm going to take you guys along with me during the shoot. I'm going to explain where I'm shooting, why I'm shooting, the type of settings I've got my camera on whilst I'm taking these shots. And I'm going to get, 2 or 3 images, bring those images back to my laptop to edit them with you guys. Basically, let's go shoot. Took me 10 minutes to say that. Anyway, peace. What's going on? I'm currently by the mailbox in Birmingham. My plan for this shot is to lay down on the ground at the bottom of the cube and take some pictures looking up. Unfortunately, I know that I'm going to get kicked out real quick, so I'll focus on getting some B-roll, getting the shots, and then I'm going to have to be out. So I'll see you guys in there. So I'm super happy with the way those shots turned out. I cannot wait to get back and edit them. As I guessed, I've been kicked out, so I'm gonna have to move on to the next location real quick. The security guard was kind of cool about it. On to the next spot. What's that? I'm currently at quite a high point in Birmingham City Centre. I'm at the top of this car park. I just got some 50mm shots of the juggling ball rested on the railing, the blown out background, which gives this nice sort of bokeh effect. I'll show you those shots when I get back to my laptop shortly. I just want to point out, as I just realised, improvisation is 100% key to being a photographer, a filmmaker, anything of that nature. Whilst I was trying to put the ball on the ledge, I was having quite some difficulty. I used my lens cap, and then I used a little stick which I'm going to Photoshop out of the image afterwards in post. That was the only way that I could get the image that I was looking for. I had to use anything that I had nearby or in my pockets. If you come across a problem, you shouldn't worry, just take it as an opportunity for you to get creative to solve that problem. I try not to stress out when I'm on an actual shoot for a client or anything like that, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be a solution. All you can do is work with what you have, but the final image that I'm going to get in the top of the stairway of this car park, holding the juggling ball. Now, I'm going to have to put the camera on a tripod and take a bunch of shots, and it's going to take a while. So I'm going to get that shot, and then I'm going to head on back home. So I'll see you guys back at the house where we're going to edit the images. Alright? Peace! And he's back in the house. Now, it is actually the next day, because last night I was having some trouble trying to record this. There was a car alarm that was very rudely interrupting me whilst I was trying to record. Here we are, take 2. What I'm going to do, I've selected 3 images that I'm going to edit with you guys. I might do the 2 depending on how long it takes and depending on how long I ramble for. Let's jump right in. The first image is actually one that I got whilst I was in the lift at the train station. Now, as I got into the lift, I looked at the composition of the lift and the way that it was laid out, and I absolutely loved it, so I quickly scrambled to try and get my camera set up correctly, and I had about 10 seconds to do this, so quickly got the shot. And then as I was walking out, I saw the image and I was actually quite happy with it. Now I've had a proper look at it, now I've got it in Lightroom. As I say, I'm happy to move forward and edit this one with you guys. Now, the way that I'll edit images, 9 times out of 10 I will have a sort of feel that I'm going for with the edit before I even start touching anything in Lightroom. Sometimes I'll just kind of feel it out and I'll just, play around with the dials until I realise that I want the image to look like this. I want it to be a super washed out, low contrast image, or I want it to be a really deep and moody, super high contrast image. With this one in particular, I want it to be the latter of the 2. I'm going to drop the temperature to give it a slightly colder feel, but try not to go too far. Then I'm going to lift up the pinks just a smidge, very, very small amount. Then I'm going to bring out the contrast in this, because the way the lift is actually set up, it's got quite a lot of leading light, and obviously the main center of attention is going to be my hand with the ball. So the way the shadows and the lights are set up, it gives this kind of tunnel vision. I'm going to bring out that sort of effect even more. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up the highlights just a smidge, just because I kind of want those lights to be a little bit blown out to help with this effect. Then I'm going to bring down the shadows. It just kind of deepens the shadows, so it gives you that, as I say, type tunnel vision. Then I'll bring up the whites just a smidge, very, very small amount. Then the blacks again, bring those straight down. So it takes a lot of the detail away from the shadows. You don't see the sharpness and the detail in anything other than the hand and the doors in front of you. So now I'm going to bring up the clarity just a smidge, bring up the vibrance, so it really brings out the blues and the reds in my hand. With the tone curve, I'm going to make the blacks even darker to give it that really sort of moody effect. I think that's a little bit too much. Then I'm going to bring up the highlights, bring those midtones up a little bit. I'm pretty happy with the color scheme in this, so I could change everything in the hue sliders, but I like how things already look, so what I'm going to do, just hit Command Z to take it straight back to the original. Then I'm going to move on to the saturation. Now I want to make the blue in the doors a little bit more oversaturated. I quite like that. Then I'm going to bring up the saturation in the magentas so that all the, as you can see, there's quite a big difference in my hand. My hand is mainly composed of magentas and purples, so I'm going to bring up the saturation in my hand so it makes it pop that little bit more, but so it doesn't give that blinding sort of effect. Then I'm going to bring up the luminance. Now the luminance is the brightness in the colors that you have in the image, so I'm going to bring up the blue luminance just so it gives a nice sort of gradient effect going from the top of this blue going down to the bottom where it's a really deep blue. Then I'll bring up the magentas a little bit. Right, so moving on, I'm going to sharpen the image just a smidge. My images can always be sharper. Now what I'm going to do here is enable profile corrections. If you're shooting with a particularly wide angle lens, for example the 10-22 which this was shot on, it'll get rid of that natural vignette that comes with shooting with a kind of wide angle lens. With shooting so wide, it's coming close to a fisheye type effect. So if you look at the image closely when I select this, it will get rid of a lot of the vignette around the edges, and if you look right in the center of the image, it gets rid of the curvature of the lens, like so. I'm going to move on to the blue primary saturation. I'm just going to take that up just a smidge. Just those blues are really deep. It just gives that nice punchy blue in there. I'm going to leave it at that for now, but just a quick tip, if you press backslash on your keyboard, if you have a Mac, I don't know if this is the case with Windows, but if you press backslash on your keyboard, it takes you from the edit and it shows you the before. Now, that is such an enormous improvement to me. Another way that you can compare, if you press Y, then it shows you the before and after. If you press Y again, it takes you straight back to the edited version. I'm really happy with the way that's turned out. I'm probably going to post this one on Instagram. This second image is the image that I got whilst I was in the queue. All I did was set the camera up, and I had to have the ISO quite high because it was kind of dim in there. I don't think the noise is going to be too much of an issue, but with this one I'm going to go for a kind of washed out super low contrast type image with a bunch of teals, and I'm going to really exaggerate any pinks that are in there, any purples and stuff like that, and to just kind of make it look like a very futuristic space style image. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to drop the temperature of this so it's a little bit more blue. Now you see I love that already. Then I'm going to bring up the pinks in the tint and move on down. I'm going to up the exposure just a very small amount because I don't want too much noise. Then I'm going to bring the contrast all the way down, so then the highlights are going to come up very, very small amount, just up to about 22. Then the shadows are going to come down. Then I'm going to bring the whites all the way up so it's super bright and all those lights are really blown out, but it gives that nice bokeh effect in there. Then I'm going to bring the blacks up a little bit so I can get a little bit more detail in there. Bring the clarity up just a smidge. This is where the fun starts. I'll bring that clarity down. I'm going to bring the vibrance up, not too much because I don't want it to be completely overwhelming, but that'll do for the first basic sliders. Onto the Rgb curve. What I'm going to do to give it that very vintage look, I'm going to bring up the blacks, and then I'm also going to bring up the highlights so it's got that nice bright edge. Excellent. Then I'm going to move over to the Hsl sliders. A lot of these blues can be changed completely so they're very you know, deep teal color, or I can make them even darker and give them a sort of purpley pinkish sort of hue. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring that down so it's closer to the teal side. Then I'm going to bring the purples up to the right to make them look like a slightly deeper red color and make them closer towards the pink side as opposed to the dark purple sort of color. Then again, I'm going to do that with the magenta, but I'm going to take it to the left so it's a much brighter pink color. This is the bit that I tend to go a little bit overboard with. I oversaturate an image. It's really difficult for me because I like really bright images sometimes, but then I also like images that are really dark. It's all or nothing with me. With this one, I'm going to try and keep that to a minimal because I don't want it to ruin the image. I'm only going to bring up the blues in this one, and then in the saturation, then maybe a little bit with the magentas and a little bit with the purples. Okay, that's looking lovely. Then again, I'm going to bring up the luminance of the blues so it gives a nice bright blue effect. Same again with the purples, bring them up to about 40, around 40, 45. Finally moving on, I'm going to sharpen these a little bit, and I'm going to bring up the noise reduction of the luminance. Now you see, with this image I can get away with bringing up the noise reduction of the luminance quite a lot because it doesn't hinder the image overall, but normally you lose a lot of detail. Now just to exercise that point, if I bring up the exposure so you can really see it, then where are you? Then if I bring up the noise reduction all the way, then you kind of lose all detail in the shadows, and I look like I've got some weird alien hand. I don't know, like I've just been born. If my skin looked like that, I would be blessed. The women would love me. What I'm going to hit Command Z to get rid of that luminance smoothing, Command Z again to undo the exposure. Now, after looking at that, I probably could bring up the exposure a little bit more, around to plus 100. Then that'll do for that. Then the final thing that I can do is I'm going to enable profile corrections. As I explained with the previous image, just gets rid of any distortion that's caused by the natural curvature of the lens. I'm going to dehaze it a little bit. The final thing, I could probably tint the shadows a smidge. Excellent, right. Then I'm going to add a little bit of saturation into those blue primaries, and away we go. Now you can see such an enormous difference between the original and the edited. Let me just take a sip of this here coffee. That concludes. I was going to move on to the final image, but I think that'll do for now. I hope you could take something from this editing process. Let me know in the comments if you want to see anything else. If there's any tips and tricks that you'd like to learn about Lightroom, if there's anything else you want to know about my process of taking the images, editing the images, just ask away in the comments. Some of the images that I got on this shoot are going to be posted to my Instagram page. Now, my Instagram page is highlighted just here, and the link to it will be in the description. I'm also going to put a link to the juggling ball along with a list of all my gear that I use. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you took something from it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I'd really appreciate the love, and it helps my self-esteem because, you know, I'm not a very confident person. But yeah, so I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love. Peace.